There is a kind of cold that has nothing to do with weather, and I learned its name in a great hall full of fire, with every alpha in the realm watching to see whether I would break. I stood on stone that had been worn smooth by 1,000 years of better-born feet, and I had no pack at my back, and the old magic of the naming right was pushing against my teeth like a hand over a mouth, because the law said, a cast-out wolf has no name to be spoken, and the right knew it, even if the king did not. Blood was running warm from my palm, where I had closed my fist around the only sharp thing in reach to keep myself upright. Across the moonfire, a man I was not supposed to love stood with a list in his hand, and on it was a single name that, by every law these wolves had ever sworn, did not exist anymore. He opened his mouth to speak it anyway. It began the night before the selection, in the only home I had ever had, with my uncle's hand flat on my door, and my own name already dying in his mouth. My name was Orla. I want to say that plainly now, while I still can, because by the end of that night, the pack of Drenmore would vote to take it from me, and a wolf without a name is a wolf without a pack. And a wolf without a pack is, by the old reckoning, not quite a person at all. I was the pack scribe. It is the lowest of the literate ranks, and the only one a girl of my standing could hope to hold, and I had held it since I was 16. When the fever took the old scribe and left no one else who could read the crown's writs aloud, or set the pack's words down for the crown to read. My father had been alpha once. He had taught me my letters himself, before his brother Stannis put a challenge to him on a winter morning. And my father did not come back up the hill. I was 9. Stannis let me live because a dead alpha's daughter, who can read, is more useful than one who is only a grievance. And because killing children is the kind of thing even cruel packs whisper about. So I read his writs, and I wrote his letters, and I learned, very young, to be a quiet and necessary thing that no one looks at directly. That is its own sort of safety. I have since learned what it costs, what Stannis did not know, what I had been doing for almost a year by the night he came to my door, was that the pack scribe writes more than the alpha dictates. It started with a single petition. A bad winter, a granary Stannis had let rot while he feasted his favourites. 3 pups dead of hunger in the lower dens. The law says any pack may petition the Alpha King for relief, and the law does not say the petition must please the pack's own alpha. So I wrote the truth of it. I signed it with my rank and not my name, the way a scribe does, and I sent it down the King's Road with a trader I trusted, and I told no one. I expected nothing. The Alpha King was a story to me then. Alaric of the Iron Throne, the wolf who had united 9 territories and ended the border wars, a name spoken the way you speak of weather you have never stood in. Kings do not read the grievances of a starving pack on the edge of the map. He wrote back, not a writ, a letter, in a plain hand, asking 3 questions so exact that I understood the man who wrote them had actually read what I sent, and believed it. How many pups? Whether the rot was neglect or theft. What I thought, I, the scribe, would mend it if the mending were mine to do. What I thought, no one had asked me what I thought since my father went up a hill, and did not come down. So I told him, and he wrote again. And somewhere in the long dark of that year, between the famine relief that arrived unasked for under a crown seal, and the questions that kept coming, I stopped writing to the crown and started writing to him. The man on the other end of the plain hand, whoever he was. I assumed a clerk, a king's secretary, some patient grey official whose whole life was reading the realm's complaints and sorting the true from the false. I told that imagined grey man things I had never said aloud. What it was to keep the records of the pack that killed your father. What I would do with Drenmore, if it were mine, and it would never, ever be mine. Which of the old laws I thought were wisdom, and which were only fear wearing a crown. I signed those letters with my name. Orla. Just that. It felt safe to be a name to a stranger who would never stand in my hall. I did not know I was writing to the king. I want that understood, because everything that the realm later called a scandal and a love story, and an act of war, began with a woman who thought she was confiding in a clerk. Stannis found the letters 11 days before the selection. I will not pretend I know exactly how. A careless trader, a watched road, a coin in the right palm. What matters is that he came to my door the night before the realm gathered, to choose its Luna, and he had one of my letters in his fist, the worst one, the one where I had written what I would do with Drenmore if it were mine. And his face had gone the particular still grey of a man who has decided something and is only waiting for the room to catch up. You wrote to the crown, he said, against your own pack, against your alpha. I wrote the truth to the crown. I kept my hands where he could see them. I had spent 14 years learning how to stand in front of this man. 3 pups died, Stannis. I wrote that down. If the truth is against you, that is not a thing I did to you. He hit the table, not me, which with Stannis was almost restraint. The selection is tomorrow. Every pack sends its eligible women's names to the king's roll. You think I do not know what you have been doing? You think I do not know whose name you have been writing into letters all year? You have been making yourself known to the crown, so that when the roll is read, the king will look for the clever Drenmore scribe who told him such pretty true things. He leaned close. You want to be chosen. You, my dead brother's whelp, want to stand up out of this pack and look down at me with a crown on. I have watched you want it for a year. That was the moment I understood he was frightened, and that a frightened Stannis was more dangerous than a cruel one. He did not fear that I wanted the crown. He feared that I might get it, that the king who had been answering Drenmore's scribe might call her name in front of the whole realm, and that then I would no longer be a quiet, necessary thing he could kill quietly. I would be a power he could not reach. So he reached for the one thing he could still take. He called the pack to the hall at midnight. He read my letter aloud, the private one in the worst light he could put on it. Treachery, ambition, a scribe writing herself above her station, conspiring with the crown against the pack that fed her. He did not read the part about the dead pups, and then he called the vote that an alpha may call only against a wolf who has betrayed the pack, the right of casting out. I stood in the centre of my father's old hall and watched the pack I had served raise their hands. Not all of them, but enough. Enough hands went up that Stannis could speak the words, and he spoke them with relish, the old severing words that strip a wolf of pack and protection, and, at the end, of the name the pack gave her to bind her to it. You are no one of Drenmore, he said. You are nameless. Be gone before the moon. I will not let you stand under. They put me out the gate with the clothes I wore and nothing else, into the cold of the night before the selection, and the last sound I heard from the only home I had ever had was the bar dropping into its bracket behind me. I walked because standing still meant freezing. I told myself the thing I had told myself my whole life, the thing that had always been almost true. No, one is looking for you. My name would never be called. I had imagined a clerk, and the clerk would read my pretty true letters to no one, and tomorrow some well-bred daughter of a loyal pack would be made Luna, and I would be a body on a road, and the realm would turn exactly as it always had. I had never in my life been so completely wrong about anything. I heard the riders before dawn. I want you to feel that road with me, because I felt it alone, and I did not yet know which way the night would break. Hooves on frozen ground, a lot of them moving fast and certain in a way that nothing good moves at that hour. I left the road. I put a stand of black pine between me and the sound, and I crouched there with my heart going like a trapped bird. And I thought, with a strange flat calm, Stannis has sent men. He has decided that a cast-out scribe who knows where the bodies of his rule are buried is a loose end after all. He is going to make sure I never reach the King's Road. The riders stopped. A voice carried across the cold, and it was not asking for a fugitive. It was calling a name. Orla of Drenmore. Then, when the night gave nothing back, Orla, we come from the king. We are not here to harm you. He sent us before the roll was even read. Your name was the first one written. Come out of the trees. It is cold, and you have been wronged, and he is waiting. If you have ever heard a stranger speak the name you were certain the world had thrown away, heard it spoken not as an accusation, but as something searched for, something wanted, then you know there is no decision in it. The body moves before the mind can argue. I came out of the trees. The man who had spoken swung down from his horse. He was broad and weathered, and he had the kind of face that has given a great deal of bad news gently, and he looked at me, at the gate cold on me, at the nothing I carried, at the rope burn the casting out leaves on a wolf's bond even when no rope is used, and something went hard and quiet behind his eyes. My name is Osric, he said. I am the king's second. We rode through the night to bring the scribe of Drenmore to this election, because the king would not have her name read off a pack's roll like a head of cattle. He stopped. He took in, again, the state of me and what it meant. What was done to you? When did they do it? Last night, I said. My voice came out steadier than I was. I was cast out at midnight. I am nameless, Osric. Whatever your king wanted with the scribe of Drenmore, there is no scribe of Drenmore any more. There is no Orla. They took the name when they put me out the gate. You have ridden all night for a woman who legally no longer exists. Osric was quiet for a long moment. The pines dripped. The horses steamed. He is going to burn down the world, he said, almost to himself. Then, to me, with a courtesy that undid me more than kindness would have, get up behind me, my lady. The king has been a year deciding to send for you. He is not going to be told he was a night too late. I learned who I had been writing to in the grey hour before we reached his seat, and I learned it from his own mouth, which is the only mercy in the whole graceless way it came out. They had given me a horse of my own by then, and a cloak, and I had stopped shaking. The king's seat rose out of the river mist ahead of us, all dark stone and torchlight, and I was rehearsing how a nameless woman stands before a king, when a single rider came down the road, to meet us at a pace that made Osric mutter something I will not repeat. He had come out himself. The Alpha King of the 9 territories had ridden out past his own gates before the sun to meet a column on the road, which Osric told me later he had not done for visiting kings. And he pulled his horse up in front of mine and looked at me, and I looked at him, and neither of us said the courteous thing. He was younger than the story, dark, still, with the kind of stillness that is not calm but enormous control held at great cost. Not a handsome man so much as a deliberate one. He looked at my face the way you look at a page you have read 100 times and are only now seeing the writer of, and his jaw moved once before he found anything to say. You sign your letters with your name, he said. Just the one word. No rank. I noticed it in the 3rd letter. A scribe who signs everything with her rank, signing one word like a person and not an office. He stopped. Started again. Worse. I read them myself. All of them. I never told you I was the king, because you wrote more truly to a clerk than anyone has ever dared write to the throne, and I was a coward about the one thing I have never been a coward about, which is being told the truth. The mist moved between the horses. Somewhere behind me, Osric had found something fascinating to look at on the horizon. You are the clerk, I said. I am the clerk. A year of letters rearranged themselves behind my eyes. Every true thing I had written to a patient grey stranger had been read by the most powerful wolf alive. Kept. Considered. The famine relief that came unasked, the questions that knew exactly where to press. The name written first on a roll before any pack had sent a single woman's. I should have been afraid. I had told the king of the 9 territories that half his old laws were fear wearing a crown. Instead, after a year of writing into the dark, the first thing I felt, looking at the man on the other end of it, was a kind of vertigo. The floor tilt of being known. And then, because I am my father's daughter, and could not help it, I said the true thing. the way I always had with him, because I did not yet know how to speak to him any other way. You sent for a scribe, I said. You are going to get to your selection and find that the woman whose name you wrote first is a cast-out wolf with no name and no pack. And every alpha in your hall is going to tell you that you cannot make a nameless thing your Luna. You rode all night for nothing, Alaric. You should turn around before they see how much you wanted it. He did not turn around. He brought his horse a half-step closer, close enough that I could see his hands were not as steady on the reins as the rest of him, and the most contained man in the realm looked at me with everything he had spent a year not writing. They took your name, he said. Then I will give you the realms. Come and watch me do it. Now you know what I did not, riding toward that hall, that the king had chosen me a year before. Any selection, in the dark, through my own true words, and that my uncle had cast me out the night before, precisely because he had guessed it and could not bear it. If you want to know whether a nameless woman can be made a Luna in front of every alpha sworn to stop it, whether Stannis got to my new life the way he got to my old one, and what the king did when he learned the whole of what was done to me, then stay with me a while. This is the part I have never been able to tell quickly, and the part that I am told shook every pack in the realm. Follow this one to its end. I promise you it does not break the way you think it will. The selection was held at dusk, in the great hall, under the open roof ring where the moonfire burns, and every alpha of the 9 territories stood ranged around it in their furs and their old gold. I had been a story to them an hour before. Now I was a problem, and word of the problem had already run through the hall like cold water, because Stannis of Drenmore had not stayed behind his barred gate. He had ridden through the night too. Of course he had. He came into that hall with 6 of his strongest, and a roll of parchment, and the particular confidence of a man who has decided the law is on his side, and for one terrible stretch, he was right. My king. He bowed exactly as low as required, and not a hair lower. There has been an error, and I have ridden hard to spare you an embarrassment before the realm. The woman your men collected on the road is no daughter of any pack. She is a cast-out wolf, severed by lawful vote of Drenmore not one night ago, for conspiring with the crown against her own. She is nameless. By the oldest law we all swear, a nameless wolf cannot stand in the right, cannot be named, cannot be Luna. I have the casting out witnessed and sealed. He held up the roll. I do not say this to wound her. I say it because you cannot build the realm's queen on a foundation the law itself will not hold. Send her away, and let the selection proceed honestly. I watched it land. I watched the older alphas nod, because Stannis was not wrong about the law, and a king who breaks the oldest law to take a woman he fancies is a king the other packs stop trusting. I watched 2 advisors lean toward Alaric, with the careful faces of men about to tell their king the thing he does not want to hear. I had spent my whole life reading rooms, and I read that one, and it said I was going to be sent back into the cold with the law's blessing and the king's regret. And I felt the thing in me that had been freezing for 14 years, finally, fully, refuse. I had been quiet my whole life. Quiet had killed my father's name in this realm, and quiet had let Stannis read my letters as treachery, and quiet had walked me out a gate at midnight without one raised voice on my behalf, including my own. I was done being a necessary silent thing. If they were going to throw me out twice in 2 days, I was going to make them do it while I was talking. He is right about the law, I said. The hall turned. A nameless woman is not supposed to speak in a king's right. The wrongness of it brought me the silence I needed. He is right that I am cast out, and right that I am nameless, and right that the oldest law says a nameless wolf cannot be Luna. I did not look at Alaric. I looked at Stannis, the way I had been afraid to look at him for 14 years. He is wrong about why I was cast out, and every wolf in this hall deserves to know the truth before you decide the law on it. I was not severed for conspiring against my pack. I was severed for writing to the crown that 3 pups starved in the lower dens of Drenmore while my uncle feasted because the granary he was charged to keep had rotted, and the proof of it is sitting in the king's own archive under my rank and seal, because I sent it a year ago, and relief came back, and Stannis never told the pack where the grain came from. Now I looked at the older alphas, the nodding ones. He cast me out the night before the selection because he guessed the king had read those letters and might call the scribe's name. He did not strip my name to punish treason. He stripped it to keep a starving pack's truth from standing up in front of you with a crown on. That is the law you're about to enforce for him. The hall did not erupt. It did something worse for Stannis. It went quiet and thoughtful, the way a room goes when a thing it can verify has been said in front of too many witnesses to bury. Stannis's grey calm cracked at last. She is a forger and a liar, and a cast-out wolf will say anything. Then we will read the letters, Alaric said. He had not raised his voice. He never did. I came to learn that was the whole weight of him. He gestured, and Osric brought forward a flat wooden case I had not let myself look at. And the king opened it in front of the realm and lifted out a stack of paper, soft with a year of handling. Handled, I saw, not stored. Read. And he read one aloud. Not the granary petition. He chose, with a precision that took my breath, the letter where I had written what I would do with Drenmore if it were ever mine, and it would never be mine. The very letter Stannis had read in my father's hall to damn me. And, in the king's mouth, read whole, with the dead pups left in where Stannis had cut them out, it was not the confession of an ambitious schemer. It was the cleverest, most merciful plan for a broken pack that anyone in that hall had ever heard, written by a woman who believed she would never be allowed to carry it out. When he finished, there was no sound under the roof ring but the moonfire. This is the conspiracy against Drenmore, Alaric said, and set the letter down as though it weighed a great deal. Its author wanted to feed it. I have been reading the Crown's correspondence for 9 years. I have never once been written to like a man who could be trusted with the truth, until these came. I did not put her name first on my roll because she is clever, though she is. I put it first because in 9 years of ruling, I have never met the other thing she is, which is honest at a cost to herself. Every single time, with nothing to gain. He looked at me then, across the fire, and let the whole realm see him do it. I would rather break the oldest law than the best woman it ever failed. It should have ended there, and it nearly did, and then the old magic and my uncle's last move came at once. Because Stannis had one card left, and it was the true one. The law is not only words. The naming right is bound by the oldest magic the packs have, the moon bond that ties a name to a wolf and a wolf to a pack, and that magic does not care what is merciful. When a wolf is cast out, the severing is real. The bond is cut, and a king cannot simply speak a new name over a severed wolf and have the magic hold, any more than he can speak warmth into a corpse. Stannis knew it. He had not ridden through the night for nothing. Speak her name into the right, then, he said, and he was smiling now, the grey smile of a man who has lost the room and still holds the law. Speak it over the moonfire and watch. The magic knows what I did. The magic knows she is nameless. It will not take, and when it does not take, every alpha here will see that the oldest law is not cruelty, but truth, and your honest scribe will be exactly what I made her. No one in front of everyone. Alaric's hands closed at his sides. For the first time, the control I had read as enormous looked, for one breath, like a man at the edge of something he could not buy or command his way out of. And I understood that he did not know how to make the magic hold either. No one did. You cannot unsever a wolf. It is one of the few things even a king cannot order. So I did the thing I had been doing my whole life, except this time out loud, and on purpose, and at a cost I chose. You do not have to give me a name, I said to him, quietly, across the fire, so that the hall leaned to hear it. You cannot. He is right. The magic will not take a name laid on me from the outside, because a name like that is a gift, and a severed wolf has nothing for it to bind to. I stepped toward the moonfire. The cold came up to meet me. The severing cold, the rope burn on a bond that no longer had anything on the other end. And it bit harder the closer I came, the old magic, recoiling from the nameless thing, walking into its right. But a name is not only given, it is also taken, held, kept. My father gave me mine, and a hill took him, and a vote took the name, but no vote ever reached the part of me that knew it, so I am not going to be named tonight. Alaric. I closed my fist. There was a ceremonial blade set in the right stone, as there is in every naming, and I closed my bleeding hand around its edge and let the cold have its price in blood instead of in me. I am going to name myself, in front of all of them, and the magic can take it, or the realm can watch it refuse a woman who walked into its fire on her own 2 feet and bled to say her own name. Either way, they will not call me no one again. The cold drove into my bones. The severing magic crushed at my chest, the way old magic does when it is asked to do a thing it was made to forbid. And for a moment, I could not get the breath under the word. The whole hall went white-edged and far away. I felt Alaric move toward me, and I held up my bleeding hand to stop him, because this was the one thing no one could do for me, the one thing that had to be mine. Orla, I said into the fire, with the last breath the cold had not taken. My name is Orla, daughter of an alpha, murdered for a hill, scribe of a pack that starved its pups. I named myself. Let it hold, or let it break. The moonfire took it. It went up white, and then gold, the way it does when a true name meets the bond and binds, and the severing cold broke all at once, and went out of me so fast I went down to one knee on the right stone, my bloody hand open on the warm stone, and the hall made a sound I have never heard a hall make before or since. 1,000 wolves witnessing a thing the oldest law said could not happen. The moon bond binding to a name no pack had given, because the woman who held it had never once let go. Alaric reached me before I fell the rest of the way. He went down to the stone with me, king of the 9 territories, on both knees in front of every alpha sworn to him, and he did not care, and that not caring was the loudest thing he had said all night. You absolute terror, he said, very low, only for me, and his steady voice was not steady at all. I had a whole right. I had a name and a claim and a speech. You were going to give me something. I got the words out against his shoulder. I have spent my life being given the leftovers of other people's decisions. I wanted to bring something to this one. I brought my name. It is the only thing I ever owned that they could not take, and now you know it. And so does the realm. The realm did shake. I am told that is the word that travelled, and, for once, the word was honest, because Alaric did not stop at a Luna. A king who would kneel for a cast-out scribe was startling. A king who would not let what was done to her go was an earthquake. He stood up off that right stone with my blood on his sleeve, and he turned to the assembled alphas of the 9 territories, and he made the casting out of Orla of Drenmore a matter of the crown. Stannis had used a true law for a lie, so Alaric used a true law back. An alpha who severs a wolf to bury a pack's truth from the crown has not exercised lawful authority. He has obstructed the throne, and the throne, it turns out, has a great deal to say about that. Drenmore's granaries were open to the king's auditors. The dead pups were entered into the record under my old seal, where they had been waiting for a year. Stannis of Drenmore was stripped of his alpha's rank by the same kind of vote he had used on me, only this one he could not pack with his favourites, because it was the realm voting and not his hall. He was sent north, packless, nameless by his own beloved law, to learn the cold he had measured out to a girl the night before a selection. And every other alpha in that hall who had ever cast out an inconvenient truth and called it justice rode home that night, knowing the throne would now ask why. That is the part that shook the packs, not the love story. The precedent. A king had announced in front of all of them that what is done to the lowest wolf in the realm is the crown's business now. My father's name went back into the rolls of Drenmore that season, beside mine. It is a small thing. It is the only thing I had wanted for 14 years, and never once let myself say aloud. And a man read it in a letter I did not know he was reading, and gave it back to me without my having to ask. I have never gotten over it. I do not intend to. It is a year now, as I set this down, and I have learned the second hardest thing of my life, which is how to be looked at directly. I was a quiet, necessary thing for so long that the first months of being a Luna felt like standing in a window I could not step back from. He saw that. Of course he saw it. He had read me for a year before he ever met me. He did not make speeches about it. He simply moved his work into the library where I kept the realm's correspondence. And most evenings now, the most powerful wolf in the 9 territories can be found at the far end of a long table, answering writs in his plain hand, while I answer mine in my plainer one. And neither of us says much, because we said most of it in letters before we ever had faces to put to the words, and we are still, both of us, better on the page than out loud. His wolf is not better on the page. His wolf, I have learned, has no restraint whatsoever, and never did. And on the nights the old cold comes back into my bones. The severing leaves a mark. Some weathers I still feel the gate close behind me. I will wake to find that the king of the 9 territories has put himself between me and the cold side of the room, without admitting he is awake. The way a man does a thing he would deny under oath. I let him deny it. We are alike that way. We give each other the truth, and let each other keep the dignity of pretending we did not notice it land. A letter came last month from Drenmore, from the new Alpha, a steady young warrior I named myself, over Alaric's objection that I was enjoying it too much, asking whether the Luna would consent to have the lower dens rebuilt in her father's name. I wrote back yes. I signed it the old way, the way I signed everything before I knew who was reading. Just the one word. Just the name. Orla. No rank. A person. And not an office. I have a great many ranks now, and I will use them when the realm needs a Luna. But the name is the thing I bled for on the right stone. And the name is what I sign when I mean it. Alaric read the letter over my shoulder, just now, the way he is not supposed to, and always does, and asked what I was smiling at. I told him I was writing my own name on a page and feeling, for the first time in 15 years, that no one in the realm could take it off again. He was quiet a moment. Then he said, I put it first on the roll, you know, before I had a face for it, before there was a single reason of state.